Hi, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Dyslexia Solutions. Today I have a very special guest. She's an older friend of mine who lives in Oklahoma, and she is working with dyslexic kids in kinder through fifth grade. She's actually married to a dyslexic man who is a mental health therapist, and she has a dyslexic son. And she has an amazing story she's going to share with you. Her name is Charmaine Wishard. So, Charmaine, welcome to the stage.
Hi.
Yeah, so Charmaine has been in contact with me over the years, and I've given her our little phonogram cards so she could help the young students learn beginning, middle, and ending sounds. And we've talked a little bit about the activities that I've created and emailed to people, but I'm going to have her share with you, introduce herself to you a little bit more about her schooling and getting her reading specialist master's.
Yes. Okay. So my journey started, I guess, about 10 years ago. Well, maybe before that, because I was finishing up my master's in literacy, reading and literacy. And my son, who's 19 right now, at the time he was 7. And I came out of this master's realizing that I couldn't help him. He was struggling with reading. He was really struggling with his sight words. And I knew a bit about dyslexia just because of being married to a dyslexic, but I really didn't know what that entailed. So I went to training, found a training site in Oklahoma that was through the Scottish Rite. And I went through the Take Flight program. And then I was blessed because as a mama, you'll do anything to help your kids, especially learn to read when they struggle so much. And I was blessed to find a ThorntonGillingham fellow who was running a camp in Colorado. And she hired me and she hired my husband and she trained us in ThorntonGillingham. She trained all her staff. My husband was going to be her outdoor pursuit person, where they would do rock climbing and wild Colorado is what they called it, or like survival skills. But she made sure even her counselors were trained in what ThorntonGillingham is, what dyslexia is, what it looks like, and even the mental health part of it. We were trained in that too. So she helped me take any reading program really and adapt it to the individual needs of a child. So after that, I went into private practice, and then I went and worked at a private school because I really missed the community of being in a school.
Yes.
So I went to a private school and got to be a reading specialist for about 5 years. And I found myself wanting to go back to the public school because if students in the private school didn't meet a certain criteria, they would send them back to their neighborhood schools. And I found myself wanting to be, okay, that's where I want to be. And exciting things were happening in my district where they were hiring Take Flight instructors for the SPED programs, the mild resource programs. And so I said, okay, I want to do that. So that's what I'm currently doing. K through fifth grade. I see mostly kids with learning disabilities, and I really enjoy that.
That's amazing. Talk to me more about the creativity that you see in your husband and the creativity that you see in your son, because we know that dyslexic people are very creative.
Oh, I see it every day with my students. My husband, he is very
And
artistic.
students.
He's very artistic. In fact, every time I do my room setup, he'll come into my room and like draw. He's just into ever since he was little, he was into drawing cartoons. And
Oh,
so he'll draw the mascot of my school. Like this past year, I had a room with just I didn't have a whiteboard, but I had blackboards. So we got out some chalk and he would paint or draw the little, because we're Timberwolves, he would draw the little
uh-huh.
timber up for my kids to see. my son has been the same way, very artistic, but he is more into media. Like even at a young age, he had a YouTube channel. And now he's editing videos for some YouTubers that do fitness. And so that's his summer job.
Great.
He loves that. And they're just very out of the box thinkers. And I'm always at awe when I'm working with my students, even my young second graders, just the way they think. I mean, I remember one time working camp, and the lady that ran the camp, she's in her 90s now. She was running the camp in her 80s, and she's dyslexic. And so all these dyslexic, my husband and some of the students, they were all around, and they're talking with Joyce, and they're all talking about their dyslexia traits and their positive traits and how creative they are. And I was just sitting there going, I'm just average.
That's so nice.
They have these brilliant brains, and I just have an average brain.
Yeah, we talk about the creative genius of the dyslexic person, and that they don't, the audience could probably recite this with me. It's not a disability, but it's a learning difference.
Learning difference.
And the brain can be retrained. So
I tell my students that all the time, because they'll come in defeated, for being in class. And I'm like, no, you just learn differently. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to teach to your brain.
Now, do you tell me that you work with the kids one-on-one? In your classroom, you work with the small group? Yes,
small group. We try to keep it, because the curriculum that we use, like I get to use whatever I want in K through first. So I use ThorntonGillingham interventions. But then once they are in second grade, we use Take Flight, and it's recommended, four or less. And so we try to keep our group small. Okay. And so
who creates Take Flight?
Texas Scottish Rite Children's Hospital.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. I know you should use my program, but I know that there's so many limits with using outside organizations. The step-by-step reading.
In private practice, and I can with my lower students for sure.
Yeah, I know we talked about that, and the timing just wasn't right. But how are the kids succeeding with you with your OG methods, ThorntonGillingham methods? You seeing good progress?
I do. I see great progress. In fact, my first year back at the public school, they would do RTI meetings, and I wasn't in those meetings because I was working with students. And the RTI coordinator for the district was she'll like put up on the screen grade or each class and how the kids are progressing. And there was one meeting where my kids kept coming up, and they were like, well, whose class is she? Whose class is the student in? And they would say that's a Wishard kid. And so that day, because I'm in a big school, and I was fairly new, so I didn't know very many people, but that school counselor popped in, the PE teacher who was working on his administration license popped in at different times, and they're like, our RTI coordinator says we need to celebrate you because your kids are making progress. And so like I had 2 or 3 people pop in different times, and I was just like, wow, okay. So it works. And I do see progress when they pull me for like state testing or if there's meetings, and then I kind of get a little anxious and grumpy because I know I'm missing, because time is important with these kids. And so I don't like missing my time with them.
That's right. One of the things that gets my attention with the ThorntonGillingham, I narrowed it down to 12. There's 12 things that have to be done with ThorntonGillingham, which is amazing. It's like a 12-step program. But that's, structured and systematic and sequential, which means teachers just can't wing it. You just can't grab this book and this book. It has to be structured, systematic, sequential. It's got to be cumulative and comprehensive, which means it's built, all the steps build from prior steps. And
Yes.
when you assess the child, they've learned, so now they're ready for the next level. What it has to be explicit, which is very directly taught. And I think the trickiest part is diagnostic and prescriptive, because when you have a group of 3 or 4 kids, it's really rare that they're all at the same level. And when you're teaching certain vowel teams or blends, there's a lot of kids that need to know them. And if they get it together, learn it together, that's amazing. But if one of them lags and one of them excels, then you just can't group them again. Do you find any challenges with that?
Yes. Yes, I have a group of second graders where poor working memory. And I mean, we've been together since kindergarten and just
Wonderful.
those sounds out and blending. And then I have another student who came into the group and he just took off. He is very fluent, and I'm having to work on accuracy with him on his fluency. And so it's very hard to juggle because I feel like I need to stay with her. But he's also kind of bored. So it's very challenging. So as
Yeah.
the year goes by, and if I can, depending on the teacher's schedule, I can change kids around and make them more grouped by their, needs and their ability.
That's interesting. I can almost
all
visualize a seating chart with different centers. And so
Uh-huh.
Joey is
Yeah.
advancing faster. He's going to go to this group, where you're moving kids around. Yeah, I love the Gillingham books that I share on my website, dyslexia-solutions.com. I share the OG book that has word lists and sentences. So, and vowel teams. So if you want to teach IE or you want to teach EI, you just go to that page and it gives you all the words and teaching. People always ask me, how do you teach this vowel team? Well, there's a bunch of words that you teach. So you're targeting a vowel team like EA because it has different sounds. And you pick those words that have that same sound. So they're learning phonics. And I think this is where Whole Word wants to get involved because they want you to memorize it. But the kids are learning the phonemic awareness. They're learning that EA has different sounds. So that's why Gillingham is so special, or the science of reading.
Yes.
I'm kind of going into that area because the science of reading is really what we're hungry to learn. And Gillingham doesn't have a curriculum. It has a method and a model to follow. And that stumbles a lot of people. It stumbled me in the beginning. And so when we do our practicums, we're trained to create our own material. And that's what spawns all the different programs. You have the Barton and you have Spire and you have, the different programs. And so that really confuses people. They're like, give me my Gillingham curriculum. And it's a model.
Yes, it's approach.
Yes.
The teachers are the State Department of Education is paying for teachers to go through letters, which I'm loving. I'm going through it too, but I'm finding that the people that are finishing letters, they're not sure what to do because they don't have a curriculum. And so I'll have tutors. Like I have a friend who's tutoring, and she's like halfway done with letters.
Now, is letters, who creates letters?
Moats and Tolman.
Okay.
And it's great. I mean, it's so packed with science of reading. It's the why behind Gillingham.
Okay.
But like you said, that it's, there's not a curriculum. They do give you a scope and sequence. But I had a tutor reach out to me and she's like, this little girl does not understand Val Team OA. What do I do? And, hunted down, some word lists for her and some sentences for her, and I told her, how I teach it, and so she texted me and said, okay, this was very helpful. But I'm thinking, okay, she's going to need the next thing, the next Val team.
Yes,
So
that's
I'm
right.
just going to direct her to your website.
Okay, yeah, that's right. When kids are learning the vowel teams, you give them spelling tests. There's assessments you can give them, and then, the Gallistel Ellis, and I wasn't planning to talk about those, but there are some assessment tools that Barnell Loft, they're reading and spelling assessments, and you can see where they're having their trouble. So you can target those vowel teams, or whether it's the long vowel that has a silent E at the end of a word, or whether they are contractions, whatever the students are struggling with, the list is going to be really long. So you just start and do one at a time. And when you teach one, you're going to review it when you teach the next one. You're going to review it when you teach the next one. And that's how it's cumulative and prescriptive. But if what I saw was really interesting. Some students were struggling with the concepts in the review, but other kids weren't struggling with it, so they didn't need that review. So that's another reason why the one is just so advantageous and moves the kids forward so fast. And it's very multisensory. So it's the hands-on, and we use circles. I guess I'm kind of bragging on the science of reading right now, aren't I? I love it because everybody learns with a multisensory approach, and dyslexic kids really need that type of approach.
Yes, I have parents that'll ask me, like I picked up a little guy in the spring. He did not qualify for SPED. And so the parents wanted some tutoring, and they're like, well, he's kind of a behavior problem. How do you address that? And I said, well, he doesn't have time to be a behavior problem, because he's, we're hearing it, we're seeing it, we're saying it, and we're writing it. And they respond so well to that.
That is great.
For me, it cuts down a lot of the behavior. If there is a behavior problem, it cuts it down.
Yes, because their brains want something to do, and it changes up. It changes up. I noticed, so I use music with my reading program, and I made the app free, CDSM. But I noticed when I'm doing the ThorntonGillingham, it's so rigorous and changing up so quickly that I don't have the time to focus on the music. But that's one reason I like my reading program, is because you can use the music and slow down a little bit, and you're filling in the learning gap. So the kids are still making phenomenal growth, but it's just not the 12 steps. It's maybe 8 of the steps, or, and you can work with 2 students at a time, because there's different ways to engage multiple students. But it's exciting to see the growth, and it's exciting to see your passion to still work with the kids. Are you getting a lot of support from your school? Could be better.
Yeah, I do. The special services, that they're good. The shift has kind of been more so emotional this year, and that kind of scares me a little bit, because my training, my passion is with the dyslexic kids, the ADHD kids, because that's just what I know best, and I know how to work well with those. I have a heart for the kids that, percentage, I don't really know the percentage, but of kids that don't qualify for SPED that are dyslexic.
Yeah.
And I have a big heart for those, because I feel like those are the ones that we're missing. And RTI,
that's right,
unfortunately, won't fix it.
So. That's right. And the kids that are in special ed under specific learning disability, 85% of those kids are dyslexic. So I talk about in some of my presentations, developmental dyslexia and genetic dyslexia. And what causes the developmental dyslexia? If only 40% of genetic is genetic, what about the other 60%? Well, a lot of those kids are in the general ed classroom, and so they're not getting the intervention. That's why once teachers learn how to work with dyslexic kids, all the kids are going to benefit from those
Yes, and
multisensory approaches.
yes, and that's the problem I'm seeing. We got to get our teachers trained, and they want to be
Yeah,
trained.
yeah.
You know,
I
they
maybe
want to
add one more
know,
thing to
but
their plate, right? They're like, no.
they don't have the 2 years to, like, letters is a 2-year program, like
Wow.
going through Orton Gillingham Academy is about a 2 years program. The Scottish Rite program, the Alta was 2 years. And so I see a lot of teachers wanting to know, but they just don't want to do the extra, they just don't have the extra time. So I'm like, if we could just bring that into our professional developments during the school year,
Yeah.
really target that would be
Well,
so
and that's
helpful.
one thing I am proud to say, that my program is easy to learn, easy to use. It lowers your stress. You just have a binder for every student, and you just, where you end one day, you're going to pick it up the next day. It's a real easy to use. When you talk about the depth of all these programs that take 2 years, and typically in a college, 1 year is like $40,000 to learn Orton Gillingham. It's crazy.
Right.
And they want
Yeah.
people to go even 3 years in college. So
Right.
I like to cook, and I'm learning how to cook real healthy so I can have the energy to do what God's calling me to do in this world. And I can spend some time with the in-depth recipes, but I have a staple of, things in my cupboard, things in my refrigerator that are healthy and tasty, and I can serve, my husband, and we have meals. But then the in-depth, that's not going to be every day. So I think about what I love about my reading program is it's easy to learn, and it's something you could do every day. Now, I take it to another level. When kids have been with me 30 sessions, I can assess them and go, you know what, they need a little bit of work on this area. And then I show people who go through my training how to do more of the science of reading in depth. And it's wonderful, but the kids are still using the app. And that's what I love about my reading program. Kids are still using the app, and they're still feeling the accomplishment. One of the things the science of reading talks about is a program should be emotionally sound. So whether kids are learning one concept at a time or one skill and reviewing it, they're feeling like they're accomplishing, but they're also they know they're accomplishing in my program too. So I just want to keep on bragging about the success. Kids are making 1 to 3 year gains in, not year gains, but wait, 1 to 3, year gains, not reading level gains,
Right.
but year gains in just 6 weeks. That's 5 days a week, though. So right now, I think with online, and we're trying to tutor 2 to 3 days a week, so it's taking a little bit longer. And then with the emotional things that the kids are bringing to the online platform is kind of tricky, but they're learning online as well as one-on-one. So
how many kids do you typically see?
So, this is very interesting. I actually left working in the home hospital setting the past year. God blessed me with a really awesome position. And I was working with kids who had dyslexia, but also kids with mod severe issues. And I could teach, I have kinder curriculum that I pulled. Well, I had preschool curriculum that I developed and I've had on my YouTube. And then I had kinder curriculum. And then I have my reading program for second through adult. And what I found myself doing was pulling out my preschool curriculum for these mod severe kiddos. And then as I saw them advancing, even though they couldn't speak, I could tell in their eyes and that they were ready to move on. And I would do the Pleasant Roland read, write, and listen books with them. They loved it. They were engaged. And it's funny because when we had their IEPs, they were very amazed that Dr. Cintron, your students are really showing improvement. And if they couldn't move, they were starting to move their hands, they're moving their heads, knocking things off their tray. They were actually moving and developing. And I just told them that I know they're learning the concepts because you can kind of see when someone's ready to move on. And I was bringing them up, from preschool to a kinder to first, and I was ready to go to second grade curriculum. And then the contract ended. So I'm back interviewing people, and that's why I haven't had interviews for a while. But I'm back interviewing dyslexic adults and having them share their story. So my passion right now is to go into the schools and provide some mental health support. I really have a passion to do that now. It looks like there's so many different dyslexia curricula out there that unless, like you said, you're in your private practice or people want to do this privately as a therapist, my curriculum is amazing and they're going to see great results and it's going to bring ease to your training. But I think I'm ready to start addressing some of the mental health issues because dyslexia has that component. The kids are dropping out of high school, going into crime and going into gangs, ending up in prison. And I've always had a heart for that. So in my
Yes.
home, I've been just volunteering, helping some young kinders who've been at risk and just helping them from the kindness of my heart.
Yeah, my husband
Yeah,
will say there's a deep shame to it
yeah,
when you can't read and your peers are leaving you behind. And we were real aware of that as our son was going through school. And probably about middle school and high school, it was about the beginning of high school. We saw some things
yes.
where he just didn't feel like he was, the just smart enough, and he's very smart, and
And
so we
there's
just
the bullying that goes on, which is really bad.
yeah, and then he actually in eighth grade had a teacher who a speech teacher who decided to teach a lesson, and he read Austin's speech out loud, like how his rough draft, how he spelled, how he spelled everything to make a point, and we had to educate that teacher.
Um,
So, and that, those are those moments that you're like, okay, um, why did this happen? And you just kind of have to tell your child that, they just don't understand.
yeah,
They don't know
you
what
don't
they're
want to
doing.
humiliate them. Yeah,
Yeah,
one of the things people don't realize is dyslexic people don't volunteer to read and they don't know how to write and spell because their brains aren't making those connections. So if you want to call on them to read something out loud, you need to take that time and prep them and see what they're going to read out loud and let them maybe practice a little bit. And that's extra effort that teachers have to put in, but we always did it because we wanted our students to feel that success.
right. Yeah. Let them volunteer. And
Yeah.
then sometimes, especially the early kids, or younger will, if they're feeling confident and ready, they'll volunteer. But so,
Ready.
but my husband always, and he sees, some clients they're addressing that shame of
The
being
shroud of
dyslexic.
shame. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even ADHD, there's some shame to that too. And
Well, and when I first learned about music and how it helped retrain the brain, the woman who introduced me to it talked about kids being misdiagnosed as ADHD when all actually what they needed was that engagement, that rich engagement and multisensory where they don't have time to be hyperactive. They're just
right.
engaged.
They're
And the
engaged.
music
Yes.
brought a calmness to their brain as well. And what are some few things you'd like to share with our audience before we go?
I just, want to tell the kids and the moms out there, there's hope. Don't give up. I talk to many moms every week, and they're just, you can tell they were me 10 years ago. But if your child, gets the right help, the right instruction, um, the world is wide open. Like my son just finished his freshman year at college, and he made the honor roll, and
Yay!
yeah, we're very proud of him because I mean, he was diagnosed as moderately severe dyslexic when he was 8 years old, and he is a remediated kid. So
Well, and that's amazing. And
hope.
I'm sure he had accommodations,
Uh-huh.
right? When
Yes. In
when you can,
fact,
yeah, when the kids get diagnosed and they can have that assessment, it gives them the more time on tests and maybe less questions when they're proving that they understand the concept. They don't need to answer it 5 different ways. And
yes.
so
Yes.
they get a
And
little
we
bit more
found that
accommodations.
once we got to the university level, they gave him more accommodations than he even uses or needs, but it's there for him.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Well, I applaud you for being such a good mom and working so hard to help so many other kids. That was my passion, to help other kids, because I saw how phonics is tricky in general.
Mhm.
And if kids without disabilities struggle with phonics, how much more is it for kids who have dyslexia or the learning difference? So that's what we're called to do. No running from it. We're still doing it. So, Charmaine, thank you. And I'm so
You're
glad we were
welcome.
able to
Thank
touch
you.
base again. I'd like to have your husband on the show one day. That would be really
Yes.
interesting. So,
Yes. It's very interesting.
I want to thank our audience for tuning in and listening to the message in your entirety. And if you haven't already subscribed, please click subscribe and like and share this with someone else. Or what I like to do is share it, but then copy the link and put it in your notes. And then you'll have it to listen to later. I mean, learning technology and how we save things we like can be really tricky. But if you read the text below, I'm going to show you the links to order some of the books that I have that go into depth about ThorntonGillingham, into depth about the science of reading, and about music and how it enhances reading for dyslexic children. Our guest today was Charmaine Wishard, and I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron. You can reach me at dyslexia-solutions.com. Have a great day, and God bless you. Bye-bye.